Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
I hope we're feeling more optimistic.
I am.
Good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You can leave it open, actually.
So, am I muted?
So we're still waiting for a few more people to join. We'll just give us a few more minutes and we'll start.
Wait on.
Wait is on. Frank just joined. Here's Bernie.
Did you get a chance to see the inaugural?
Okay, here we go.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Nice to see you. It's been about a month, right? Since we've seen each other. Everybody good? All right.
Great. Feels like a month.
Today, we're going to have a presentation on ABLE, which is the Active Bystandership in Law Enforcement. And there's been a lot of talk about that across different communities. And I thought it would be interesting to hear what they have to say because it is something that we're thinking about in our recommendations. So I invited them to come on and we're going to start with them. So I'm going to introduce Vanessa Watson and Kendra Brown from MasterCard International. And they're both on the call, right?
I see them both.
Good to see you guys. Thank you for coming. And I'm going to turn it over to you right now, okay? Okay.
Thank you for having us. We're happy to be here. So I will start off with brief introductions, share why Kendra, myself, and MasterCard is involved, and then we'll get into the ABLE presentation. So my name is Vanessa Watson. I'm a vice president and senior managing counsel at MasterCard, and I've been with the company for 9 years. Kendra?
Hey everyone, I'm Kendra Brown. I'm one of Vanessa's colleagues. I am a director in our public policy team. I have been on board since March of 2020. I was in the office for 2 weeks and then we all started teleworking. So it has been such a pleasure.
Can you speak a little louder?
Sure. Okay. Can you hear me now? Is this better?
Yes.
Okay, great, sorry. So I'm Kendra Brown. I have been a part of MasterCard as a director of public policy since last March of 2020. I come from Capitol Hill, so I was a chief of staff there and the policy director for the Congressional Black Caucus. So I'm very, very grateful to be a part of the MasterCard team and look forward to the conversation today.
Okay, so 2020 was really an eye-opening year for us in America. It exposed our vulnerabilities, our infirmities, our atrocities during a worldwide pandemic that gripped all of our attention. We witnessed the brutal killing of George Floyd, and this was a heart-wrenching experience resulting in despondency and despair. Personally, as the mother of a Black son, I cried every day for 2 weeks. But out of pain lies promise. And so there rose up a cry, a rallying cry in many of us for more, for better, and for change. Here at MasterCard, we have a deep commitment in community service and a belief and recognition that our employees exist in the communities we serve. And so the pain that was being experienced by Black people across the nation included those within the corporate walls. So any positive changes for the community would not just benefit MasterCard as a company, but MasterCard employees within the community. It was from this pain and the recognition of the pain that MasterCard's In Solidarity commitments were birthed. And we looked for opportunities to make meaningful and systemic changes to police reform and our communities at large. And that's when we came across ABLE. And after doing our diligence, we knew that this was a project that we would be proud to stand behind and support, where our employees could help to make meaningful change with lasting impact on our communities. So if you're still unsure about why MasterCard or other corporations like Pepsi and Verizon would lend support to a topic like police reform, that seems unrelated to our business. It is because when we address some of society's most difficult issues, when we improve police and community relationships, and when we achieve a more just and equitable system, we all benefit. And I'm particularly proud of presenting to this group because I have lived and been a resident in White Plains for almost 20 years.
Oh, that's great. Excellent.
So I'm going to share my screen right now, and then we're going to get into host disabled participant screen sharing. I'd like to share my screen, so could I have those rights?
Sure.
Please.
Sure. Hold on. Try it now, Vanessa.
Sure. Okay.
Great.
Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So Kendra will start us off on ABLE's mission.
Great, thank you so much, Vanessa. Hopefully everyone can hear me, yes?
Yes.
Great. So ABLE's mission, there are, of course, 5 pillars. 1 is to ensure every police officer in the United States has the opportunity to receive meaningful, effective, and active bystandership training. 2, to serve as a clearinghouse for research, thoughtful and sound training materials and model policies. 3, to provide guidance to police agencies and communities that want to develop active bystandership programs and build the cultures that sustain them. 4, to establish standards and benchmarks for effective active bystandership programs. And 5, to connect ABLE partners, agencies, and community groups across the United States. That is ABLE's mission.
So what exactly is active bystandership, you may ask? So if you ever think of a situation where you have seen someone about to do something that you know isn't right, and you witness someone doing something that isn't right, but you stand frozen, like you have these two minds. You're like, should I do something? Should I say something? And there's several things that could prevent you from doing anything. The person may be senior to you. You may feel fear of something, losing a job, losing credentials, whatever the case may be. And so active bystandership actually empowers law enforcement to intervene. It provides the tools. So regardless of whether someone is ranking higher, superior, it gives tools that helps an officer to successfully intervene in a situation that could prevent harm, and then protects those who actually do intervene.
And when you are looking at what the stakes are, right, and who the stakeholders are, the community members are one of the stakeholders. These are, of course, individuals, especially members of marginalized groups, who bear the brunt of police mistakes and misconduct when it happens. Next, you have law enforcement. We understand that negative interactions between residents and local law enforcement are hurting officer careers, their job satisfaction and health and wellness. Another stakeholder, of course, is the community at large. We understand that the relationships between communities and law enforcement can sometimes be strained, which can create distrust and harm to one another. Another stakeholder is the local government. Incidents between residents and local law enforcement sometimes do create civil unrest, and we have seen that, right? Creating poor perceptions of cities at times, and can contribute to economic hardship and community instability. And lastly, we feel that one of the additional stakeholders are businesses, right? Communities where your employees live and you do business are sometimes distressed, right, by tense relationships with law enforcement. So these are some of the stakeholder communities that are at play when you're talking about what active bystandership is.
So what is ABLE, you may ask? You've heard that it stands for Active Bystandership for Law Enforcement. And it is an evidence-based program. It has shown and proven success from the cockpit to the classroom. And it's housed within Georgetown University Law Center. One interesting tidbit is that we have a panel of law firms, and one of our law firm panel members is actually Shepard Mullin. And Shepard Mullin's partner, Jonathan Aroney, was one of the, I call it founders, if you will, or instrumental leaders within the ABLE program. And it's through that partnership between Shepard Mullin and the Georgetown University Law Center that we have ABLE. And, you know, the goal here is to prevent misconduct. We want to reduce the mistake. We want to have officers more healthy and have wellness. And this is something that we have support across officers, communities, so that we can de-escalate and stop problems before they arise, right? We want to reduce the harm both to officers as well as civilians, so that community members feel and are protected, officers are protected and have each other's back, cities and agencies are protected, less lawsuits. And we want to improve police and community relationships through ABLE, building the trust and the cooperation that we want to foster and create a safer environment for all. These are all what ABLE is about and what ABLE strives to provide through the training that is enabled once a community or law enforcement agency signs up.
So it's our thought that the ABLE commitment is a actual commitment to a promise to change culture. It's not just a training, it is a holistic recipe and process for cultural transformation in a package and delivered in a way that is strongly supported by law enforcement in the communities that they serve. And these core tenets here are community support, officer wellness, dedicated coordination, meaningful training, measuring efficacy, program awareness, accountability reporting, paying it forward, and of course, follow through. So these are the tenets that we feel set forward a promise to change culture.
So how does ABLE work? So you just heard Kendra talk about the 10 commitments. So every agency needs to commit to these 10 standards that she just described. And this is further evidenced and detailed on the website for ABLE, which I'm happy to share with this group afterwards if you want to look into it a little bit more closely. And it's the 10 standards are really designed to transform culture. Now we know culture is not easy to transform, but it's certainly not impossible. And so if we feel like if we have the right commitment to this type of training and dedication and commitment that's needed for this program to work, culture will necessarily be transformed. In addition, agencies must submit 4 letters of support. So it's not enough to just say, I'm interested. You need to have the support of the community behind you. So two of those letters of support need to come from community groups and also from like chief office law enforcement officers just showing a tone of the top or a top-down commitment. The training is 8 hours of training for the officers and the leaders, as well as 2 hours of annual refresher training. And importantly, incorporating the ABLE core principles throughout other academy programs. So that's how you change culture. You don't just launch a program, but you sort of have that same culture manifest throughout different programs to have it sort of reinforced. And a dedicated program support so that there's meaningful communications planned and sort of, a commitment to the ABLE culture, if you will.
So ABLE is based on evidence-based results. There has been research that has been set forth over decades on field studies by Professor Emeritus Irvin Staub and other experts. We understand that similar active bystandership programs have proven successful in other professions, including the medical profession. EPIC, which is the successor to ABLE, has been in effect in New Orleans since 2015, and by all accounts has been remarkably effective at reducing police mistakes and misconduct. So EPIC was essentially first, and then ABLE came from EPIC. Yes, I have a note here to speak up. So yes, I am going to speak a little bit louder. So hopefully everyone can hear me, and I apologize for that. Active bystandership training requires, as we said previously, a culture change. The meaning of good teamwork has to be redefined from its usual meaning among some police officers that you support anything that your fellow officer does, right? To protecting everyone by stopping fellow officer from unnecessarily harming people. And that is a quote from Dr. Irvin Staub, who is currently, of course, on the ABLE project board of directors and who really moved the ball forward relative to the research that is the underpinning of the program.
So the beauty about ABLE is that when it works, nothing happens. So if you can imagine a community where there isn't any media to report of some violent killing, that's what the good result of ABLE is. And so even a quote here from a social activist says that, active bystanderships create stories that will never be told because nothing happened. And that's the kind of community we want to live in, right? If there is news to report, it's how there has been a turnaround. And I'm going to use my own community in White Plains, such that the community and the police work hand in hand in stopping and preventing crime, and there's no unnecessary killing or death or harm to our communities and our society at large. So that's the type of thing that ABLE can bring about, but which is why we're so excited about being ambassadors for ABLE, so that we can have these types of communities where there's positive impact on police and community relations. I'm hearing an echo. I hope nobody else is. And we just want to make sure that every single police officer has the opportunity to receive this type of training, so that we can have this type of transformation, as you could see from these various quotes across corporate, including from our very own Ajay Banga, who's MasterCard's executive chair, who says it's a technique that has safeguarded lives in healthcare, aviation, and communities. We've seen the positive impact it's had on police community relationships in New Orleans. Scaling the ABLE program can now help support social justice across the country and save Black and police lives alike.
So we, of course, just heard from those in the community, and also our executive chair, and another leadership testimonial here. I know that we mentioned the New Orleans Police Department. So the deputy chief in New Orleans stated that ABLE teaches officers how to intervene when they see potential problems, so they don't have, so that they don't become real problems. And in the process, ABLE redefines loyalty from "I'll protect you by covering for you" to "I'll protect you by keeping you from causing harm in the first place." And so it's a shift in that definition of loyalty. And then a academy director in the state of New Hampshire has a quote here also that states, "I did not know exactly what to expect when I came to class. However, it became clear to me early on that ABLE was something special and different. It is because of that specialness and differentness that sets it apart from other types of training that try but fail to establish a mindset of accountability for not only ourselves, but our brothers and sisters as well. The top down and a bottom up approach," I'm hearing that go too, "will change the traditional way of thinking, rock, paper, right. Why? Because it empowers all of us to be active bystanders. One person can make a difference. I consider myself to be ready, willing, and able."
And of course, Officer, I don't know what's happening with the sound. Officer testimonials have also been positive. We've heard, that ABLE is sort of training on the cornerstone of teamwork, that there's morale building, there's a clear process, you get to win back trust. If I read some of these officers right here in Westchester, Yonkers, New York Police Department. At first, I did not believe this topic would be embraced by officers at all. But now, after my training, I feel that these concepts would actually be the cornerstone of teamwork and morale building for the officers of any police department. Similarly, Northern Virginia Police Department, the ABLE program gives law enforcement personnel a clear process to do what we claim to do, take care of each other while serving the community. And Cincinnati Deputy Sheriff in Cincinnati says, "As a road deputy, this training will help my peers as well as myself to change the mindset of the public, and critically, to win back the trust that law enforcement so rightly deserves." And ABLE has answered the call from the community and law enforcement professionals in developing curriculum that is beneficial in repairing the trust between citizens and officers, says an officer from Burlington Police Department. So these types of testimonials are important because they point to the fact that officers are finding the benefit to themselves and to the communities they serve in terms of the training. I think much of us take for granted that we have the necessary skills to sort of speak up when we need to, but it's a tool and a muscle. And like everything else, if we're not trained in how to use that tool or muscle, sometimes we just don't use it and it goes dormant. So ABLE sort of brings those muscles to life.
And so in, leading to the question of how can you—
Kendra, I'll jump to the next slide just
Okay.
to be more specific to
Sure.
this group.
Absolutely, great. So thank you, Vanessa. So for additional information on how you can learn more about the program, and if you desire to have any additional information, the website is there, but I just encourage you to talk to those as we are today, but those who would really ensure that the benefit would be there for the community. And we are so grateful to present to you today and are able to answer any questions that you have. It's such a extreme honor to be able to share the ABLE program with you. And if you have any questions, please do let us know. And I think that for Vanessa being right there in White Plains, I think it is just wonderful when what we do professionally links with where we are, right, and our community. And so if you have any questions, please let us know. We are so grateful to be able to share with you. And thank you, Karen, for putting the link in the chat. And that is where you can find additional information about ABLE at the Georgetown site.
So Kendra and I will answer any questions you have now. You may have other things on your agenda that you want to turn to. And so if that's the case and you want to, move on to those agenda items, we understand, but we're here and available to answer any questions you may have based on what we've just presented.
A question. You guys don't mind?
Sure.
Hi, thanks for doing this presentation. It was awesome. I just have one question. Vanessa, you live in White Plains, and this is our first time hearing from you.
Well, I've not been involved in police reform, I have to say, until MasterCard's involvement. I do a lot of other types of community services, like I'm on the board of the Legal Services of Hudson Valley, so I've done a lot of work there to help the underserved in the community. But this is my first foray, if you will, into police reform and social justice, and definitely got the awakening in 2020. And I'm happy that MasterCard is backing this, but I was going to do something anyway. So this is something now that I feel that everyone who has the opportunity and the voice and the ability to do something should get involved.
Thank you.
Great.
And just a little bit of, the ABLE was launched in September 2020. So even though we spoke about EPIC, which is Ethical Policing is Courageous, which started in 2015 in New Orleans, ABLE, which is sort of the successor program, if you will, or the enhancement of EPIC, just launched in September, and we already have 70 agencies across the US that have signed up for this. So that just goes to show the more people that hear about this, see the benefit and the value that it can have for their communities.
And hopefully be 71 after today. Chief, Captain.
Vanessa, Kendra, do you have any video tapes of any of the training and process?
So the training itself is available after you've signed up. However, there are, if you go to that website, there's a wealth of information that you can get from that website, including videos and other maybe video testimonials from officers and other agencies that are participating in ABLE. So there's a wealth of information there that you can get more, but I think the training itself you have to commit, because that's a part of the commitment, right? We don't want people to just say, I viewed it, now I'm able, certified, and I could go forward. We want the full commitment that we spoke about, including the community support and the letters and the 10 sort of principles behind ABLE. So that this is not just a moment, but a movement, and it's a cultural change and not just a check the box exercise.
Well, Vanessa and Kendra, again, thank you for taking your time and explaining this to us. So I know this really is less than a year in operation, so to speak, right? And Yonkers is went through it already. Is that, did they go through all the 8 hours? Did they train their whole department?
They're going through it now, I believe, as we speak. Yes.
Okay, and are there other departments more locally? I know it's, we have Virginia and Cincinnati. Are there any other local departments that
New York City has committed its entire all the agencies to ABLE, and they're actually going through the program right now.
Do we get a look at the commitments? Just out of curiosity, what we're committing to,
So the commitment is on the website, but I'll just go back to this slide where they're sort of laid out. This is the commitment. So the commitment is to have the community support. You're committing to officer wellness. You're committing to a dedicated coordinator, which is someone to sort of make sure that this is happening, meaningful training, measuring efficacy, program awareness, accountability, reporting, noting that this isn't changing your reporting requirements. This is an important point because, it's just saying that this should be a part of any reporting that agencies already have. So it's not increasing it or lessening it. It's just a part of. And paying it forward, sort of sharing. If you go through it, White Plains go through it and wants to share it with Greenberg or surrounding towns, that, speak to your fellow agencies and just let them know. And following through. So those are the 10 commitments, which you can, read about in terms of more details on each of these, but it's not such a heavy lift that you're going to be, completely up, changing everything that you do. It's sort of adding this component and making the promise to change your culture to include ABLE as part of it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, Vanessa.
Go ahead.
Hi, Jim.
Hi, Vanessa and Kendra, thank you. Just want to echo the chief and thank you for presenting this. I had some of my detectives reach out to some folks down in Yonkers. In fact, they reached out to Detective Autumn Edwards, who I actually went through the police academy with, and she was raving about the program. So kudos to whoever presented it. I was just wanting to know, is there a cost associated, a price for the training itself?
So there isn't a cost. This is provided for free. The only cost would be for travel if necessary, and no one is traveling right now, so everything is happening, virtually. So, but it's provided for free. That's part, thanks to the sponsorship of, MasterCard and other entities that have gotten behind this. This is, something that we're trying to make available as easy as possible to the agencies so that this can get adopted and we can have the meaningful change that we're looking for in our communities.
And one last thing before Wade goes, is this a train the trainer? Meaning,
yes,
we train a few of our people and they get to train the entire department?
That is correct. That's exactly how it works.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Thank you again, both of you.
And that was my question. Is it train a trainer, and is the initial training virtual or in person? But I guess it could be virtual.
Yes, everything is happening virtually now.
Okay.
So, obviously, as we come out of the pandemic, there'll be more opportunities for in-person, but everything is now being offered and done virtually.
There's no cost. Sounds like done deal.
I'm just wondering, and thank you ladies very much. It's really good to have you both here. I'm wondering if you've received any concerns from police leaders that Able is, in one sense, it's challenging the chain of command that our policing institutions rely on. So I'm just curious. I mean, I'm imagining scenarios where you have two officers on a scene and one of them feels safe and one of them doesn't feel safe. And one of them might have more information about a situation. So it's just, for me, this is really interesting. I think, you know, it's, so well, I guess the point I'm trying to say is that two officers might have different understandings of the use of force continuum. So this could also like be almost a judgment call as well.
So my understanding, and I'll allow Kendra to speak as well, is I haven't heard those types of responses. Again, because EPIC, which is sort of the starting point, if you will, for Able, has been in effect since 2015 and has been enormously successful. The sense that I got and what I've heard is that this has even saved officers' lives, right? So in terms of if, for example, and I'm making this up, I'm not an officer, so pardon me, if there's some kind of stop and frisk or some kind of exercise where you're sort of searching someone down, but someone missed a particular part that needed to be checked, that is also an active bystandership moment. So it's not just based on necessarily having a third party and sort of rank and who is making a judgment call. It's sort of known situations where something that all the officers are trained on is being missed or overlooked or you know, not being followed, and standing up in those situations. I haven't heard about those type of judgment calls in terms of one officer feeling this way or another, and how that sort of plays out. But it's more, you know, everybody receives the same training, but someone isn't following protocol in a moment for whatever reason. Maybe they're tired or stressed, and you know, a fellow officer just sort of, you know, reminding them of that before it gets out of hand.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Kendra, if you have anything to add, please feel free.
Sure, thank you, Vanessa. And I just think that from what we have heard, it seems to be an additional, you know, layer of accountability to each other that is already there, right? But it's that additional accountability piece to each other. Awesome.
Any more questions? Well, I want to say thank you. Thank you so much for coming on board and explaining the program to us. I know it was a little difficult getting a date. We had to keep going back and forth, but thank you so much for showing up. We learned a lot, and you will be hearing from us. And I'm going to see you guys, I'm going to be seeing you guys on Monday as well.
Yes.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Janice, for the opportunity. We appreciate it.
No
And
problem.
thanks everyone for
Thank you,
coming.
ladies.
Thank you.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Thank you so
Take
much.
care.
So,
Are we still meeting the committee?
yeah, I want to just go over a few other things.
Okay.
I just want to let everyone know that Karen and I have been meeting and we are going over all of the recommendations, and there's about 50 of them. So we have a lot. Some of them we're having a little bit of trouble understanding what the actual recommendation is. So it's taking us a little bit of time, and we're going to be reaching out to the person who made the recommendation to help give us some clarity. So you might be hearing from us in the next couple of days. Once we get everything finalized, the rough draft, once we get it finalized, we will send it out to everyone via email. Then you will get the opportunity to give us feedback or comments. Let us know whether you're good with what we put down or whether we made a mistake with the interpretation of a recommendation. So you'll have a few days to do that. And then once we have everything, we're gonna put it out to the public. The governor's executive order says that the public should get a chance to see this. So then once we do that, we're gonna leave it with the public for about 2 weeks, between 10 days and 2 weeks. And then we're gonna give them an opportunity to give feedback, comments. If necessary, if we need to tweak something because of comments that were said, then we'll do that. But shortly after that, we're gonna be putting it together and sending it to the council.
Our thought or our goal was to try to get this onto the March council agenda. And that would be, let me just look up the date. That would be March 1st.
Okay.
So
So
that's the goal.
I think, I'm not sure, but I think the Policies and Procedures Committee is gonna meet with the police department again. I think we need to talk some things over. I'm not sure when, we haven't set up a date, but I think that's coming. And other than that, that's about where we are right now. So we're working hard. We were here like 4 hours the other day, just going over each recommendation. And like I said, there's about 50 of them. You might get it down to maybe 40 because some of them are kind of duplicates. Some of them can fall into a different category. So we're working on it. Okay? Everybody?
So Janice, Karen, and to Chief, we just had this presentation and it seems like it has some opportunity. Any thoughts about the presentation that we just had?
It's on our list of recommendations for the department to implement.
Oh, it is, okay.
Yeah,
so-
that was already discussed, yeah.
Yeah, it's on our list. It's one of the recommendations. So it's gonna stay there, you know? And I just wanted everyone to know about it because, you know, I thought it was good. I heard some good things about it. So.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too, MasterCard, they're in our backyard.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's an advantage for us to have an entity within our community that can help us in terms of strengthening our community.
Yeah, I think it's a plus, definitely. And does anybody have any other questions?
So you've put enormous work into it and we're all really grateful and we appreciate all the time and energy. Do you have a timeline as to when you think it'll be ready for public distribution?
Something like that, yeah, 2 weeks.
2 weeks. You know, but you will know before we do it.
Okay.
So
You'll
Thank
see it,
you'll
yeah.
see it. You'll see it. We're gonna get your feedback first. You know.
And the one thing I had about the ABLE, and I didn't want to ask in front of our guest presenters, but currently in the city of White Plains, if 2 or 3 or 4 officers were on a scene and the commander on the scene was making a judgment that perhaps clearly violated protocol, is the current climate such that a junior officer would feel comfortable contradicting the commander, or is it such that the junior officer would have to keep quiet and just follow whatever the commander on the scene is saying? I'm just curious.
Well, you know, our instructions are generally, you know, you're to follow lawful orders, but they're certainly you're not to follow. I'm sorry. Say it again.
That was feedback.
Certainly you're not required to follow unlawful commands. And, you know, theoretically, it comes down to the different personalities. I can tell you that there are plenty of bosses that are way more willing to talk things over, and some bosses that are a little bit more authoritarian. But I don't think that there are any, I think our training, I don't think a boss is, you know, without giving specific examples, I don't know. I don't know how fair it is to comment on what a cop can do and not do in a certain situation. You know, I do know, I mean, I don't know of any of those, thankfully, those situations that have come up where there have been issues out on the street where there's been an order that was issued that was, or a decision made that was so off the way things should be, that officers were so conflicted. But I get it. I get it now. It can happen. I think this is what we saw so far. I think is pretty good. I mean, if it gets conversations and gets us the opportunity for this training, I think it's good. So we all understand what our responsibilities and goals are going forward.
Any other questions? So,
I have a question. Do we know how this has been received by the New York City Police Department? I know that they said it was being implemented.
Well, I don't know about New York, but Yonkers is, I think it's well received by Yonkers. I think Captain Spencer had mentioned that earlier. So I think it's being well received by Yonkers so far. And that, you know, to me, that's a good sign. They're a bigger police department for us. There is, you know, if they can do it, I don't see why we wouldn't be able to evaluate and decide to implement it.
Yeah, I first heard about this through John Mueller, the Yonkers Police Commissioner, a few months ago. So, and he was raving about it. And
Right.
the head of the officers are excited about it too. You know, Autumn Edwards and the other officers. You know, it's, you know, the top and the rank and file are both excited about it. So that's great.
Great.
I spoke to the Yonkers PD, I think, that he's actually one of their instructors.
We missed the first part of what you said, Brian, because of the audio.
I said I spoke with the Yonkers PBA president as well, and he had nothing but good things to say about it, and he happens to be one of the instructors. So piggybacking what Wade was saying is, even from the top to the through the rank and file, it was well received.
Awesome.
good, yeah, very good. Okay, well, anybody have any other questions?
And it's free.
Yeah, yeah.
It's part.
So we don't have another date right now set up for another meeting.
But we will communicate by email.
But we'll keep you posted by email as to what's going on. All right? So
Then one last quick question. So March, we're going to present this to the Common Council.
that's the goal.
And then the Common Council will give us feedback?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then we have to file this report by early April.
April
1st.
April 1st. So if the council wants to talk to us about anything that's on our list of recommendations, they would have to do it, you know, between when we give it to them and maybe the week before April 1st.
Right.
So that we have time to tweak it if necessary.
Or just answer any
Or just
questions.
answer
they
any
have.
questions. So that's what we're working on now, trying to make things as specific as possible, so there's no room for misinterpretation, you know, so that's where we are right now.
One thing I was chatting with a member of the task force is that some of the other municipal task forces have Common Council members that are actually participating with them. And of course, there's plus and minuses for that. The minus for us is that I feel the Common Council members may not understand all the deliberations and all the process and all the discussions that this task force has been having. So they may not fully appreciate how we've come to the conclusions and recommendations that we've been making. That was just something I was thinking about.
Mm.
So Nada, I can say that we really thought in the beginning about how to structure this committee. And in talking to other municipalities in Westchester and also around the state, because we're pretty active in the New York Conference of Mayors organization, there's really a wide gamut of how other municipalities have decided to structure their police reform committees. Like I know, for example, in Albany, it's largely being done by the mayor and the police chief, which is not how the Mayor Roach wanted to structure it here. So because the council and the mayor is actually considered part of the council, but because the council will ultimately be in a position where they will be the body accepting the recommendations and deliberating on the recommendations, we felt that to have a member of the council and or the mayor on the committee as well, it would be kind of a what's the word I'm looking for?
Conflict?
A conflict, yes, a conflict. So that's ultimately why we opted for a more hands-off approach to let this body of citizens and stakeholders do the work. But yes, but we also talked about the flip side of that coin, which is what you articulated, and which is they won't necessarily have the benefit of hearing all of the deliberations that have gone into the final report and the recommendations. You know, I have let them know that the meetings are all recorded and we're posting them on our city YouTube account and they can watch them online. And that's why I think it's going to be important to build in some time in case they do have questions, you know, to address those, because there very well may be some of that.
I was talking to another member on one of the other police reform committees, and they do have several members from the council on there, and they don't really like it because the council tends to tell them no and shoots things down. So they're not making recommendations that they would have made if the council wasn't sitting there. So
Okay.
I guess it could go both ways.
Yeah, I think so.
I certainly think, and I'm sure Karen, I think you're so probably, and Janice, it'll probably be part of the final report that will have a preamble that delineates maybe all the meetings, all the subcommittee meetings, the hours that went into this. Again, as you said, make the videos available to them that they already are. So at least they'll have an understanding. And I agree. I mean, everybody put in a lot of work here. So I do believe the council should have a very clear understanding that this is not some contrived thing. I don't think they would think that anyway.
I don't think so, but you're right. And I have put some time into writing an introductory portion of the report, which does go through the process that the committee followed from its inception. It's public listening sessions, how we publicize those, the decision to break into subcommittees, what those were, subcommittee meetings. So I try to go through each of those steps to at least give the readers an overview, whether they be a member of the council or public, general public, an overview of the process that was followed. And hopefully, you know, folks will take the time to read through that.
Thank you.
And just so everybody knows, I just found out today or yesterday, there's one village not too far from White Plains. Their first meeting is February 8th. The first meeting.
Oh my God.
Maybe they only have 8 sworn officers.
Oh.
Still, that's a lot to do in 1 month.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the flip side, there are jurisdictions that submitted their plan to Albany in September.
True.
So, you know, I think we're doing it right. I don't know. That's my opinion.
No, I agree.
Yeah, I think we're doing good. All right.
All right, so we'll endeavor to keep in touch with you closely via email and look forward to sending you the draft.
And thank you everyone for all you're doing, for all the work you put into it. Really appreciate it. We got some great recommendations, and I think we're gonna do all right.
And thank you to Karen and Janice for leading this.
Yes.
Exactly.
You're welcome.
Absolutely.
And when this COVID thing is over and we can see each other again, we'll have a big celebration.
Yes,
Absolutely.
yes. Yeah. All right, everyone. Have a nice weekend. Talk to you soon.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Have a good
Thank
weekend,
you.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.